Chapter 1. The Toner Catastrophe. David Carson had exactly 3 goals that Wednesday morning. Refill his coffee before the lunchtime rush, finish the quarterly report without swearing at his computer, and pick up his son from soccer practice on time. None of these goals remotely involved rescuing anyone, least of all Amelia Hart, the flawlessly composed department head whose idea of a crisis was when the office fern drooped by a single leaf. But at 9:42 a.m., a sound cut through the steady hum of keyboards and murmured conversations. A sharp, startled cry, abruptly stifled. It wasn't loud, but it carried the unmistakable pitch of something going terribly wrong. David looked up from his spreadsheet. "That came from Hart's office," he said to no one in particular. A few heads lifted, then immediately dropped again. Nobody in their right mind voluntarily inserted themselves into Amelia Hart's world. She was intelligent, demanding, impeccably dressed, terrifyingly efficient, and, beneath all that, intimidating in a way that made most employees suddenly remember they had very important tasks elsewhere. But David had 2 kids. He'd survived projectile applesauce, Lego-related foot injuries, and the 1,000 small emergencies that came with parenting. A startled cry barely cracked the top 100. He stood, crossed the carpeted aisle, and pushed open the department head's office door. "Ms. Hart, our holy freeze, don't move." Amelia Hart stood in the center of her pristine office like a statue caught in an exploding ink storm. Her hands and forearms were coated in fine black toner powder. Her cream blouse and gray skirt looked like a modern art experiment gone rogue. Black flecks drifted in the air, settling on her desk, her neatly arranged binders, even the normally immaculate floor. The printer sat to one side, its toner cartridge hanging halfway out like a wounded animal. Amelia blinked at him. "Don't touch anything," she said faintly. "Correct. Don't move a muscle," David said, stepping inside carefully as if she were standing on a landmine. "We're going to fix this. Just stay exactly where you are." She nodded once, stiffly, the picture of a woman processing the death of her dignity. David darted out of the office and into the cubicle maze, slamming his palm on the nearest partition like a town crier summoning the masses. "Emergency!" he shouted. "All female employees to Ms. Hart's office. Bring your purses. Move. Time is ticking." Chairs rolled. Heads popped up prairie dog style. A handful of women exchanged looks that said, "What now?" But they obeyed the urgency in his voice. A few clutched their purses to their chests like shields as they hustled across the room. Satisfied the cavalry was coming, David sprinted to his own desk. He yanked open the bottom drawer and retrieved 2 unopened packages of baby wipes. One lavender-scented, one extra strength. Being a dad had taught him 2 universal truths: never trust a quiet toddler, and baby wipes solved 70% of life's problems. By the time he returned to the office, Amelia still hadn't moved. She looked like a marble statue of a business executive who had been rudely excavated from a coal mine. David approached slowly, tearing open a pack of baby wipes. "Okay, deep breath. These will help with your hands and arms. Try not to, dust yourself like a rug." "This wasn't how my morning was supposed to go," she murmured, accepting the wipes hesitantly. "The clients will be here in 18 minutes. "Well, then it's a good thing I'm excellent in a crisis," he said cheerfully. "You're going to be fine." The female staff poured in behind him, forming a semicircle around their powdered department head. "Oh my goodness," whispered one. "Is that all toner?" another said. "This is fixable," declared a more confident voice, Maria from accounting. "We've got this, Amelia." David turned to the women. "She can't miss this meeting. I don't care what it takes. Someone lend her clothes, someone fix her hair, someone figure out how to make her look like the person those clients want to do business with. I'll step out so you can work your magic." He backed out of the office, closing the door as a flurry of determined female voices rose behind it. Alone in the hallway, David exhaled. He leaned against the wall, running a hand through his dark hair as adrenaline ebbed. This wasn't the first time he'd handled an emergency, but it was the first time the emergency involved the woman who struck fear into the hearts of interns with a single raised eyebrow. He glanced at his toner-smeared sleeves. "This better be worth dry cleaning," he muttered. Minutes crawled by. Every so often he heard snippets through the door. "Lift your arms. Not that high. Hold still. You're making this harder. Anyone have blotting powder? My blazer should fit her. No, toner spreads. Pat. Don't rub." David listened with a mixture of amusement and nerves. Part of him wanted to walk in and help. The wiser part stayed firmly put. At last, the door opened. Maria peeked out. "David, we're done." "She's ready." He stepped inside and stopped. Amelia Hart, the woman who moments ago resembled a soot-covered chimney sweep, now stood in a smart navy blazer borrowed from someone. A crisp white blouse that fit perfectly, a simple but elegant pencil skirt, and hair swept neatly into a low twist. All traces of toner were gone from her skin. She looked professional, polished, and, though he wouldn't say it aloud, absolutely stunning. She met his eyes, expression softening. "Mr. Carson, thank you for taking charge. For all of this. Any time," he said lightly. "I've seen worse. Once my son exploded a blueberry pouch in the car. We never recovered." A tiny, reluctant smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Perhaps the first smile he'd ever seen that wasn't polite or managerial. A knock sounded on the open office doorway. "Ms. Hart," the receptionist said. "Your clients just arrived." Amelia straightened, professional demeanor snapping into place. "I'll be there in a moment." The receptionist left, and Amelia looked at David again. "I truly appreciate your help. Just part of the job," he said, offering a half shrug. "No," she said firmly. "It wasn't, and I won't forget it." Without waiting for a reply, perhaps afraid he'd say something that would crack her composure, she swept past him and out into the hallway, heels clicking with confident precision. David watched her go. Then he glanced at the printer, still bearing the scars of the toner battle. "Next time," he told it dryly, "I'm throwing you out the window." Chapter 2. The Aftermath. The office buzzed with an unusual energy the next morning. Not the sluggish, caffeine-seeking shuffle typical of Thursdays, but something livelier, something bordering on gleeful. David suspected it had everything to do with the toner incident, which, by now, had likely spread through the building and possibly into the adjacent department like an invasive species. He was halfway to his desk when he heard it. "There he is," someone stage whispered, followed by a wave of giggles. David glanced over his shoulder. A pair of analysts stood at the copier, watching him with enormous, delighted eyes. He frowned. "Morning." They didn't reply in words, they burst into applause. Actual applause. He stopped walking. "Okay, no. Absolutely not. Whatever this is, we're not doing it." But they were already laughing too hard to stop. One of them, a young woman named Bree, wiped her eyes. "I'm sorry, David, but you should know you're officially a legend now." "I don't want to be a legend." "Too late," she chirped. "Heroes don't get to choose." He pinched the bridge of his nose. "All I did was recognize a crisis when I saw one. And then you turned the entire female workforce into an emergency makeover squad," Bree said. "Honestly? Inspiring." He shook his head and continued toward his desk, but murmurs followed him like a persistent echo. "That's the guy. Baby wipes guy. Ms. Hart owes him her career. Do you think they're secretly together?" David abruptly stopped. "Not secretly together," he announced to the general vicinity. "Not overtly together. Not together in any dimension of the universe." That did not help. Now the whispering had a delighted quality. Fantastic, he thought. I've become office folklore. He sank into his chair, opened his email, and tried to focus on the blinking cursor taunting him from the quarterly report. His productivity lasted all of 30 seconds before he sensed someone hovering at the edge of his cubicle. He looked up. It was Amelia Hart. In daylight, without the panic or toner coating, she seemed even more striking. Her outfit today was a soft blue blouse and a fitted charcoal skirt, her hair falling in loose waves instead of the controlled twist she usually favored. Her expression, however, was unreadable, somewhere between professional composure and deep, mortifying memory. "Mr. Carson," she said quietly, "may I speak with you?" A dozen heads instantly popped over cube walls like curious meerkats. David stood so quickly he hit his knee on the desk. "Yes, yep, of course." He cleared his throat. "We can use the conference room." She nodded with relief. "Thank you." The room wasn't far, but the walk felt oddly ceremonial. The moment the door closed behind them, Amelia exhaled. Not loudly, but enough to suggest she'd been holding her breath since Tuesday. "I wanted to address yesterday's situation," she began, smoothing a non-existent wrinkle in her blouse. "First, the meeting went exceptionally well. The clients were impressed, and we secured the account." "That's great," David said sincerely. "I'm glad it all worked out." "It did. And it wouldn't have if you hadn't intervened." She paused, then added with visible effort. "So, thank you." "You don't need to thank me twice," he said gently. A faint flush touched her cheeks. "I know. But I also wanted to apologize." David blinked. "Apologize? For what?" "For inadvertently causing you to become the subject of office gossip." She looked pained. "I've overheard things this morning. They've dubbed you." She winced. "The toner savior." David groaned, dragging a hand down his face. "Oh no. No, no, no. And baby wipes night," she added softly. He stared at her. "That's worse." "I agree," she said with surprising dryness. Their eyes met, and for the first time, they shared a mutual, helpless laugh. It felt shockingly natural, as though they weren't supposed to be boss and employee but two human beings trapped in the absurdity of a shared moment. When the laughter faded, Amelia folded her hands, her tone shifting. "I also wanted to do something to express my gratitude properly." She hesitated as if editing herself in real time. "Would you allow me to buy you coffee today? Or lunch if coffee feels insufficient?" David wasn't sure which stunned him more, the invitation itself or the shy awkwardness behind it. Amelia Hart was not someone who stumbled over words. Yet here she was, presenting the offer like a fragile package she hoped he wouldn't drop. "It's not necessary," he said, though the warmth in his chest betrayed him. "Really? I know it isn't necessary," she replied, lifting her chin slightly. "That's why it matters." He hesitated. She looked at him with earnest expectation, and something in her expression, a mix of resolve and vulnerability, disarmed him. Well, I do like coffee, he admitted. Her shoulders eased. There's a shop down the block. Noon. Noon works. Excellent. She walked toward the door, then paused. And Mr. Carson? He turned. Yes. I'm very aware that yesterday was embarrassing. For both of us. Her voice softened. But I also want you to know I sincerely admire how you handled it. You took command of a situation I completely mishandled. Not many people could have done that. He didn't know what to say. Compliments from her felt like rare gemstones. Heavy, valuable, not to be handled lightly. Thank you, he said finally. She opened the door and stepped into the hallway. The instant she emerged, a ripple went through the nearby desks. David sighed. Great. Chapter 2 of the rumor saga just launched. He returned to his desk and tried to resume working. But his mind refused to cooperate. It kept circling back to Amelia's expression in the conference room. Not the composed boss, but the woman beneath. At 11:57, he closed his laptop with a soft click. Time to face the next round of speculation. The coffee shop was warm and bustling, the smell of roasted beans drifting through the air. Amelia was already there, standing near the counter, gazing at the menu with grave seriousness. She turned as he approached. I can't decide between the cinnamon latte or the almond cappuccino. David deadpanned. This is clearly a life or death decision. Amelia nodded solemnly. Naturally, he chuckled. Try the almond cappuccino. It won't betray you. She gave him a curious look. Odd phrasing. Long story, he said. It involves me, a faulty espresso machine, and a very angry soccer coach. She smiled, really smiled, and it hit him how rare that expression was on her face. The barista took their orders, and soon they found a small corner table. The conversation started cautiously. Work, the weather, neutral topics. But little by little, the edges softened. I didn't know you kept baby wipes in your desk, Amelia said after a moment. David shrugged. Force of habit. When you've raised 2 kids, you learn to anticipate chaos. Spills, sticky hands, mysterious goo. Mysterious goo, she repeated, laughing. I'm almost afraid to ask. You should be. He sipped his drink. What about you? Any secret emergency tools? Yes, she said with surprising speed. Lint rollers, 3 of them. That's oddly specific. I shed, she admitted in a low voice, glancing at her dark hair. It's a problem. He grinned. That's the bravest confession I've heard all week. Amelia rolled her eyes, but she was smiling, and David felt it, the shift, the subtle, unexpected warmth. Maybe she felt it too, because her voice softened. Yesterday, I thought my career was collapsing. I've never felt that, out of control. You're allowed to have a bad moment, he said. Even superheroes trip sometimes. She blinked. You think I'm a superhero? Maybe, he said, surprising both of them. Or at least someone who tries very hard to be. Her breath caught just a fraction, and then she looked down at her cup. This was a good idea, she murmured. Yeah, he echoed. It really was. When they parted an hour later, the walk back to the office felt lighter, as though the world had shifted half a degree to the right. David didn't know what came next, but for the first time in a long while he was curious to find out. Chapter 3, Coffee, Complications, and Chemistry. The next morning arrived with unusual clarity, the kind that made David feel as if the universe had decided, inexplicably, to give him a clean slate. He stepped into the office balancing a travel mug in one hand and a folder of half-finished reports in the other, bracing himself for another day of exaggerated winks and toner-related jokes. But the atmosphere felt different, quieter, charged. As he walked toward his desk, Bree from the copier station waved at him with all the subtlety of a foghorn. David. Morning. Nice shirt. He looked down. It was his usual button-up. Nothing special. Thanks, he said, uncertain. It's new, right? She asked, eyes sparkling with barely concealed gossip energy. Had it for 2 years. Oh, she blinked, recalibrated, then shrugged. Still looks great. He nodded slowly and continued walking. This was new, a shift from yesterday's chaos. If anything, the office felt like a sitcom audience waiting for the next dramatic entrance, which happened exactly 10 seconds later. The elevator dinged. Amelia Hart stepped out, and the room went silent. She wasn't dressed dramatically differently from her usual polished style. A pale green blouse, tailored black slacks, hair half-pinned, but something in her demeanor was softer, less armored. She carried no stack of folders, no tablet, no red pen of judgment. Just a small to-go cup from the same cafe they'd visited yesterday. David steeled himself. Don't read into it, he told himself. It's just coffee. People drink it. It's not a sign. But then Amelia spotted him, and she smiled. Not a professional courtesy smile. Not a polite acknowledgement smile. A real smile, warm, natural, immediate. Good morning, Mr. Carson, she said, crossing the room toward him. Bree dropped her stapler. Someone else whispered, Oh my God. David tried to maintain composure. Morning, Ms. Hart. Amelia, she corrected quietly. Outside of work hours, at least. His eyebrows lifted. Is this outside of work hours? It was outside 2 minutes ago, she said. So it counts. Against his will, he laughed, and her smile widened in response. But then her expression grew more serious. If you have a moment, I'd like to discuss something before today gets away from us. There was a collective inhale across the cubicle farm. David resisted the urge to assure everyone he wasn't being fired. Sure, he said, gesturing toward the conference room, but she shook her head. Actually, I thought maybe we could walk, just around the block. Oh, he blinked. Yeah, that works. As they walked toward the elevators, whispers bubbled up behind them like carbonated water. Are they? Do you think? No way. Way. The doors closed, sparing them further commentary. Amelia let out a small sigh of relief. I had forgotten how efficiently gossip travels here. Efficient is an understatement, David said. I'm convinced they synchronized their watches. She laughed under her breath, a small musical sound that surprised him. Well, let's give them less material, then. But as soon as they stepped outside into the crisp mid-morning air, she paused and corrected herself. Actually, perhaps more material is unavoidable. David gave her a puzzled look. Meaning what? She took a breath, a steadying one. I wanted to apologize again for the chaos I dragged you into, but also to ask something I'm not very good at asking. He slowed his pace. Okay, shoot. She glanced up at him, eyes nervous but determined. Would you join me for lunch today? He stopped walking. Lunch? Yes, she grimaced. I realize I asked you for coffee yesterday. This is different. Or at least I intend it to be. David's brain spun its wheels for several silent seconds, processing. Different how exactly? Her voice was gentle. More intentional. Intentional. That word landed differently, both heavier and lighter. Caused a shift somewhere inside him like a piece sliding into place. Oh, he said, because English temporarily failed him. I didn't expect that. Neither did she, apparently. Her cheeks flushed faintly, and she folded her hands together. I understand if the idea makes you uncomfortable. We do work together, and I am technically your superior. I don't want to create complications or pressure. It doesn't make me uncomfortable, he said quickly. Just surprised. Is it a bad surprise? She asked softly. No, he said truthfully. Not bad. Then, lunch? He hesitated only a moment longer before nodding. Yeah, I'd like that. Relief washed across her face so visibly it tugged at something in his chest. Good, she murmured. There's a place across town I've wanted to try. They resumed walking. For a few seconds, the only sound was the distant rumble of traffic and the faint clatter of a delivery cart rounding the corner. So, David said, needing to break the tension, does this mean I've finally paid off my toner incident debt? Her laugh came easily this time. Oh no, you'll never be free of that debt. I expect you to remind me of it every time I act too proud. Oh, trust me, he said, grinning. I will absolutely hold it over your head. She nudged him lightly with her shoulder, a gesture so unexpected and casual that he almost tripped on the curb. She saw it and tried to hide a smile. Are you always this composed? He asked. Her eyes sparkled. Not remotely. I'm just good at pretending. They made their way back to the building with a comfortable silence hanging between them, the kind that didn't need filling. When they stepped off the elevator into the office again, the whispers reignited. That didn't take long. Called it. I knew they were into each other. David muttered. Good grief. Under his breath, Amelia leaned in slightly. If it helps, they also think I eat lunch standing up in a supply closet. He blinked. Do you? She hesitated. Sometimes. He burst out laughing. She smirked and headed toward her office but paused to look back at him. Noon, she said, her tone confident now. Don't leave without me. I won't, he replied. She disappeared into her office, and immediately 3 coworkers materialized beside David like summoned spirits. Bree grinned. So, what was that? Nothing, David said too fast. Nothing, repeated Mark from the data team, is the universal expression of something. He rubbed his temples. Guys, is this like a date? Bree demanded. Because if it is, you need to tell us so we can emotionally prepare. And maybe coordinate a celebration. Not a date, David insisted. Just lunch. Mark snorted. Yeah, and toner is just dust. David gave up. I'm going to work. He sat down, opened his laptop, and pretended to focus, but all he could think about was Amelia's expression earlier. The hopeful uncertainty, the courage behind her words. Intentional. It echoed in his mind all morning, steady and distracting. At 11:59, his phone buzzed with a message. Ready? Hey. He exhaled, heart skipping. Here we go. Chapter 4. Department Chaos and Dad Life. David had expected lunch with Amelia to be the highlight of his day, but after they returned to the office, quietly, politely, intentionally, not much had changed outwardly. They didn't walk too closely. They didn't linger. They didn't smile too long or too obviously. But the office noticed anyway. Half the staff watched them enter as though they just returned from eloping. By late afternoon, rumors had metastasized with alarming efficiency. I heard they shared a dessert. No way. She doesn't share dessert with anyone. Well, she shared it with him. David heard it all as he passed the break room, resisting the urge to clap his hands and shout no one shared dessert. He simply continued on, pretending he wasn't the center of a soap opera. He reached his desk just as his phone buzzed. Maya. Dad. Ethan stole my fries at lunch. Again. Please ground him. Ethan. I did not steal them. She put them on my tray by accident. Maya, he lied. David sighed and typed back one-handed. David. I love you both. Don't make me come to the school. He pocketed the phone. Neither of his kids had inherited his calm. They'd inherited his stubbornness, unfortunately. He had barely sat back down when Amelia appeared at the edge of his cubicle. Her tone was all business. Mr. Carson, could you assist me in conference room B? A few coworkers gasped. One whispered, Conference room B is the private one. David stood, fighting a smile. Of course. They walked side by side, both maintaining a resolutely professional distance. The moment the door clicked shut, Amelia sagged against the table. Do they think we eloped? She asked dryly. You have no idea, David muttered. A long breath left her. I suppose I should have anticipated it. You did. Yesterday. You said gossip travels fast. Yes. But I was hoping it might be inaccurate gossip. She rubbed her temple. I forgot where I work. He snorted. Your mistake is assuming gossip has to be accurate to be enthusiastic. That pulled a reluctant smile from her. I suppose so. They went over project notes for a few minutes, staying focused until a loud crash echoed from the hallway. Amelia startled. What was that? David peeked through the glass panel. Someone knocked over the mail cart. Or the mail cart committed self-destruction. Hard to say. She gave him a look. How do you function with humor as your primary coping mechanism? It's either humor or crying, he replied. And I've already cried once this week. She blinked. You have? No. But if I say yes, people usually stop asking me for favors. Amelia laughed. Bright, unguarded, completely uncharacteristic of the woman who normally ran the department like a precision instrument. He liked that laugh more than he should. They finished their discussion, and she gathered her things. Thank you, Mr. Carson. David, he corrected gently. Her fingers hesitated around her notebook. Then she nodded, softening again. David. He opened the door for her, but the moment they stepped into the hallway, they were ambushed by Mark from the data team, who held a manila folder like a peace offering. Oh, Ms. Hart, he said too brightly. David. Great timing. Just delivering this to David. He whispered. Were you two alone in there? David closed his eyes in agony. Mark. No, don't. Amelia, perfectly calm, took the folder. Thank you, Mark. And please reassure the staff that our meeting was entirely work-related. Mark nodded. Right, of course. Then added in a conspiratorial whisper. But if it ever stops being work-related, please tell me so I win the office pool. Mark, David groaned. Amelia pinched the bridge of her nose. There's an office pool? Mark nodded solemnly. Technically 3. After he left, Amelia spoke in the tone of someone reevaluating their entire management strategy. I need to schedule mandatory sensitivity training. You really do, David said. The workday finally ended, and David packed up his things before heading out to pick up his kids. The sun was low when he pulled into the school parking lot. Maya spotted him first and ran up, backpack bouncing. Dad, Ethan ate my fries again. Ethan jogged behind her. She gave them to me. By accident. Maya protested. David put a hand on each of their shoulders. Children. Beautiful, brilliant children. Please tell me no one set anything on fire today. They exchanged a look. Maya, David warned. It wasn't me, she squeaked. Technically. Technically? He repeated. Ethan muttered. There was a toaster incident. David trusted none of those words. As they piled into the car, Maya asked, Who were you texting earlier? Was it a lady? David choked. Excuse me? You smiled at your phone, she said. You only do that when it's important. Or when Ethan sends you a meme. Ethan nodded. Yeah. Was it a lady? Absolutely not discussing my phone habits, David said firmly. Or ladies. So it was a lady, Maya concluded. He groaned. Maya. Dad, it's fine, she said soothingly. You're allowed to have a life. He started the car. I do have a life. You two are in it. Yeah, but you need adult life, Ethan added. Otherwise you'll turn into a dad zombie. David stared through the windshield. A dad zombie. Yep, like a regular zombie but wearing socks with sandals. I don't even own sandals, David argued. You will, Maya said grimly. It's inevitable. David sighed. Being a single father meant your children routinely ganged up on you with the full force of their combined comedic potential. Later that evening, after dinner and homework battles and a deeply questionable science project involving clay, David finally collapsed onto the couch. His phone buzzed. Amelia, are your children still accusing you of being a zombie? David blinked. David, how did you know? Amelia, you left your notebook in conference room B. Mark brought it to me. He also reported the zombie transformation theory. David laughed aloud, startling the cat. David, for the record, I am not a zombie. Amelia, good. I had hoped our lunch date wasn't a symptom. He froze. He hadn't said it aloud, but the word date hit him like a gentle, thrilling shock. She'd said it intentionally. David, me too. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, returned. Amelia, have a good night, David. He stared at the message long after it faded. He couldn't predict where this was heading, but for the first time in years, he felt something crack open inside him. Possibility. Chapter 5. Amelia's disaster day. Monday mornings had a unique cruelty, but this one seemed determined to eclipse all others. David knew at the moment he woke to 3 text messages from Maya, 2 from Ethan, and 1 from the school reminding him it was Hat Spirit Day, something no one in the house had remembered. By the time he dropped the kids off, Ethan wearing a baseball cap and Maya insisting a headband counted as a hat if you were creative. David felt wrung out but functional. Mostly. He arrived at the office balancing a half-finished coffee, a stack of folders, and the faint hope of a quiet morning. That hope died the moment he reached his floor, because Amelia Hart, polished, structured, eternally composed Amelia, was standing in the hallway with her blouse tucked incorrectly, her hair visibly frizzing at the edges, and her laptop cradled like a broken limb. She looked up at him with the expression of a woman one sneeze away from a meltdown. Good morning, she said, voice brittle. Everything is fine. Is it? David asked carefully. No, she admitted instantly. None of it is fine. He stepped closer. What happened? Her composure cracked like thin ice. I spilled coffee on my original blouse. The replacement has a button missing. My laptop crashed and refuses to turn on. My phone updated without my consent, erased all my alarms, and I missed the project handoff meeting with the Zurich team. And, she exhaled sharply. My shoe heel broke in the parking garage. He blinked. That's an impressive list. She nodded gravely. I'm aware. Okay, he said gently. Let's triage. Her eyes widened. There is a triage? There is now. He reached for the laptop first. It was warm, humming faintly, but the screen remained dark. You didn't drop it, did you? He asked. I set it down firmly, she said defensively. How firmly? Her silence was not encouraging. He examined the ports, pressed the power button, tried a hard reset. Nothing. I think the system's frozen. IT can revive it. She sagged with relief. Good. Excellent. I can handle that. He looked at her hair next. Do you have a comb? In theory, she said. In practice, it is somewhere in my purse, which currently resembles an archaeological dig. He chuckled. I'll help after we fix the blouse. There is no fixing the blouse, she said weakly. The missing button is, unfortunately, located in a structurally significant area. Oh, he said. Oh, exactly. Okay, stay here. Don't move. David, she said in a very controlled, very fragile voice. If you leave, I might spontaneously combust. I'll be fast, he promised. He sprinted toward the cubicles until he spotted Maria, who was just setting down her purse. Emergency, he hissed. Maria didn't even look surprised. Toner emergency? Different emergency. Amelia emergency. She froze. Level of severity? Her blouse is 1 button away from disaster. Maria grabbed her purse. Say no more. Minutes later, David returned with Maria and a small sewing kit she apparently carried at all times, because men can't be trusted with fabric. They found Amelia sitting on a bench in the hallway, laptop closed, shoe off, looking like a sculpture titled Corporate Despair. Maria clapped her hands. Up, she commanded. Amelia stood. Sewing kit, David said, handing it over. Maria took one look and declared, I can fix this in 6 minutes. 7 if the thread rebels. Thread rebels? Amelia asked faintly. Always, Maria said grimly. David stepped a respectful distance away as Maria worked her magic, quickly stitching the blouse closed with precise, confident movements. Amelia stood frozen like a mannequin, arms slightly lifted. When Maria finished, she stepped back. There, secure enough for a tornado. Amelia looked down, astonished. Thank you. You owe me coffee, Maria said cheerfully. Preferably expensive coffee. Done, Amelia said, visibly relieved. Okay, David said. Hair next. Amelia stiffened. My hair is hopeless. It just needs a reset, he said. Tilt down a little. She hesitated, then obeyed. David's fingers brushed lightly through her waves, smoothing renegade strands, calming static. She went very still. Better? He asked. She lifted her head. Yes, she said quietly. Much. Maria glanced between them, eyebrows raised in open curiosity, before drifting away with a smirk. When they were alone again, Amelia released a long breath. Thank you. Again. I don't know what's happening to me lately. You're human, David said softly. It happens. Not to me, she muttered. Not like this. He smiled gently. Maybe you're due for a few imperfect days. She looked up at him, her emerald eyes unexpectedly vulnerable. Do you ever have days where everything goes wrong? Constantly, he said. Especially if it's a Tuesday. Tuesdays hate me. This is Monday. Oh, then you're in the clear. Monday disasters reset by noon. She laughed. Tired, genuine. I needed that. And, he added, you handle today way better than you think. Her expression warmed. You make it sound like I didn't nearly self-destruct. You didn't, he said. You reached out. That's new. She hesitated. It is. This, he gestured between them, is kind of becoming a pattern. Yes, she admitted. Apparently you're my emergency contact now. He choked on air. Emergency contact? Not officially, she said quickly, cheeks flushing. Just metaphorically. Oh, he said, trying to sound normal when his heart was anything but. She lifted her fixed blouse with both hands, inspecting the stitching. I have a presentation at 3. If anything else goes wrong, I may, in fact, combust. If you combust, he said gently, I'll bring a fire extinguisher. She shook her head, smiling in spite of everything. You can't keep rescuing me. Maybe not, he said, but I can help. Her eyes softened again. A look that lingered a bit too long, warmed a bit too deeply. Thank you, David, she whispered. The way she said his name, soft, real, unguarded, sent a quiet ripple through him. Anytime, he said, and he meant it. Chapter 6, The Office Event and Rising Tension. The invitation arrived on a Wednesday morning, appearing in everyone's inbox at precisely 9 a.m., as if scheduled by a committee of overachievers. You are cordially invited to the annual interdepartment corporate mixer. Attendance encouraged. Networking expected. Smiles mandatory. David stared at the screen with the sinking dread of a man about to be drafted into social combat. Mark from Data poked his head around the cubicle wall. Mixer night. Big event. Free appetizers. Appetizers aren't enough, David muttered. They never are. Mark wiggled his eyebrows. Maybe not. But the real draw is who you'll be attending with. David narrowed his eyes. Stop. Not saying names. Mark said sing-song. But they may rhyme with Pam Elia Smart. That didn't rhyme at all. It rhymed spiritually, Mark insisted. David groaned. I'm not attending with anyone. Mark snorted. Sure. And Toner is still just dust. Before David could throw a paperclip at him, Bree popped by next. Do you think Miss Hart will wear a gown or a power outfit of death? Or both? Or will you match colors? Couples sometimes match. We're not a couple, David said flatly. Not yet, she chirped, vanishing before he could protest again. By noon he was considering faking an injury, filing for witness protection, or switching careers entirely. His phone buzzed. Amelia, did you receive the mixer invitation? David, unfortunately, yes. Amelia, I dislike corporate mixers. David, I fear them. Amelia, then would you consider attending with me? Strictly to survive it? David froze, then typed carefully, David, yes, I'd like that. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then reappeared. Amelia, good. I was hoping you would. The night of the mixer arrived far too quickly. The venue was a sleek rooftop event space downtown, glowing with string lights and far too much ambition. Soft jazz drifted through the air like pretentious fog. People mingled in small clusters, laughing too loudly or sipping drinks like they were rehearsing for a commercial. David arrived early, wearing the one suit he owned that didn't look like it belonged at a funeral. He checked his phone nervously, wondering if he looked out of place. Then he saw her. Amelia stepped out of the elevator in a navy dress with subtle shimmer, elegant without being dramatic. Her hair framed her face in soft waves, the kind that would have sent every gossip enthusiast into cardiac arrest if they saw her in the office like this. She caught sight of him, and her expression brightened in a way no one else would have noticed. But David noticed. Hi, she said softly when she reached him. Hi, he echoed, trying not to stare. You look nice, she said almost shyly. So do you, he replied, not even trying to hide it. They walked into the crowd together, keeping a polite distance that fooled absolutely no one. Networking began immediately. A client approached Amelia. Ms. Hart, wonderful to see you. You look radiant tonight. Thank you, she said smoothly. This is David Carson, one of my team analysts. David extended a hand. Nice to meet you. The client's eyes shifted between them. Ah, so this is the infamous Toner hero. David buried his face in his drink. It's never going away, is it? Probably not, Amelia said, amused. They mingled for a while. Amelia speaking to executives with poised grace, David deflecting Toner jokes like a seasoned diplomat. But then the evening took a turn. A man approached, tall, well-dressed, charming in the way of someone who did confidence drills every morning. A watch worth more than David's car gleamed on his wrist. Amelia? The man said warmly. I didn't expect to see you tonight. Her smile tightened. Hello, Adrian. Adrian. Wealthy client Adrian. Charismatic Adrian. Smiling like he knew he was beautiful Adrian. David felt his stomach tighten inexplicably. Adrian turned to him. And you are? David Carson. Ah, Adrian said, assessing him. Her employee. David bristled. Her colleague. Amelia immediately stepped in. David is an integral part of the department. Adrian lifted a patronizing eyebrow, then returned his focus to Amelia. We should catch up later. Maybe grab a drink? For old time's sake. David blinked. Old times? Amelia cleared her throat. I'm here with David. Not I'm busy. Not maybe another time. Not I'm working. I'm here with David. Adrian looked between them, surprise flashing in his eyes. Oh, I see. He forced a smile. Well, enjoy your evening. When he walked away, David exhaled slowly. So that was something. Amelia pressed her lips together. He's harmless. Mostly. David hesitated. Were you too? She waved a hand dismissively. We had 2 dates years ago. He was charming. And exhausting. Ah, David said. Explains the watch. She laughed softly. Yes. They continued talking, weaving between groups. If anyone doubted their chemistry, the evidence tonight was unmistakable. Every shared look lasted a beat too long. Every joke landed too warmly. Every moment settled too comfortably. Then jealousy sparked. A woman from accounting approached David with a bright smile. Hi, stranger. You clean up nicely. Oh, he said, slightly taken aback. Hi. You should dance with me, she said, reaching for his hand. Before he could respond, Amelia spoke up. He's busy. The woman blinked at her. Oh, are you too? Busy? Amelia repeated. The woman backed away with a polite nod. David raised an eyebrow. Jealous. Amelia stiffened. I was merely clarifying availability. That's one word for it. She scowled, but her cheeks warmed. You are insufferable. And you're adorable when you're defensive. She tried not to smile. Failed. The night continued like that. Teasing, laughter, warmth simmering between them like something waiting for the right moment to ignite. Just as Amelia reached for another drink, David's phone buzzed aggressively. He glanced down. Ethan. Dad emergency. Need help now. Maya. It's not that bad but also kinda bad. David sighed. Kid's situation. I have to go. Amelia's face softened. Of course. Is everything okay? I'll know when I get there. Let me know, she said, touching his arm lightly. The touch lingered. Too long. Warm enough to stay with him for the entire rushed elevator ride down. On his way out, he turned back once. Amelia was still standing there, watching him leave, expression caught somewhere between longing and concern. And he knew, without question, something was changing. Something neither of them could ignore much longer. Chapter 7. The Big Misunderstanding. By Thursday morning, life had settled into an uneasy balance. David had survived the late-night trip to school. Ethan's emergency turned out to be a forgotten science project and a melted gummy bear situation. And he'd texted Amelia afterward to reassure her everything was fine. She'd responded with, I'm glad. Rest well, David. Short, warm, a little too easy to reread. But now, as he stepped into the office with a fresh coffee, he sensed a change in the air. Something subtle but wrong. The buzzing whispers weren't the playful, teasing ones from earlier in the week. He sounded sharper, more curious. Mark met him halfway down the aisle, eyes wide. Dude. Oh no, David muttered. What now? Mark leaned in. Rumor is you're getting back together with your ex. David stopped dead. What? Bree appeared from behind a ficus plant like an office ninja. Is it true? No, David said. Where is this coming from? Well, Bree hesitated, exchanging a glance with Mark. Someone said they overheard you last night at the school. Something about working things out? About being a family? Oh, that was about my kid's teacher, not my ex. He rubbed his forehead. I swear, this office is one bad Wi-Fi signal away from becoming a medieval village. Mark nodded gravely. People do love a dramatic tale. David exhaled sharply. Does Amelia know about this? Bree's grimace answered the question. Fantastic, he muttered. He walked quickly toward her office. Her door was open, but one look at her stiff posture told him everything. Arms crossed, jaw tight, eyes fixed on her screen with laser-like intensity. He knocked lightly. Hey, morning. Morning, she said without looking up. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. David stepped inside. Everything okay? Quite, she said crisply. Very busy morning, right? Because she was suddenly speaking like an automated customer service bot. He tried again. Listen, I think you may have heard something about me and my ex. Amelia's fingers paused over her keyboard. Only for a second, but he saw it. I haven't paid attention to idle gossip, she said flatly. It's irrelevant. I just don't want you getting the wrong impression. Her chin lifted just slightly. Your personal life is your own, Mr. Carson. Mr. Carson. Not David. He felt the hit like a slap. There's nothing going on with my ex, he said firmly. We're not. There's no. It's fine, she cut in. I don't need an explanation. But she did. Because she wouldn't even look at him. He stepped closer. Amelia. Her posture went rigid. I have a meeting. With who? It's barely 8:30. Still, she said, rising, gathering her tablet with an almost violent efficiency. If you'll excuse me. She swept past him, brushing his shoulder with the coldest accidental contact in recorded history. He stood alone in her office trying to process the whiplash. Yesterday she had watched him leave the mixer like she was memorizing the moment. Today she wouldn't meet his eyes. What the hell just happened? The rest of the morning was a blur of confusion, awkward tension, and an office staff gleefully fanning the flames. Everywhere David went, he overheard things. Maybe he wants stability for his kids. Maybe she realized he still loves his ex. Maybe Ms. Hart is devastated but hiding it. Maybe they'll break up before they even start dating. He wanted to shout, "We're not dating. And also please stop narrating my life like a bad reality show." But he said nothing. He just kept glancing at Amelia's office. At lunchtime, he caught her leaving with her coat already in hand. Going out? He asked, trying to sound casual. Yes, she said tightly. I need air. I can come with. No, she said too quickly. I'd prefer to be alone. She walked past him without slowing. He didn't try to follow. That evening, he picked up the kids, made dinner, oversaw homework, and tried not to think about how badly everything had derailed. But then Maya, ever perceptive, peered at him over her math worksheet. Dad? Why do you look like someone stole your favorite snack? I don't have a favorite snack. Fine. Why do you look like someone stole your sense of joy and hope? He blinked. Do I look like that? Yeah. Your face is doing the sad camel thing. I don't have a sad camel thing. You absolutely do, Ethan said, passing by with a bowl of cereal. It's concerning. David exhaled. It's work stuff. Maya frowned. Work stuff that makes your face sad camel? Yes, he admitted. She set down her pencil. Dad, is this about the lady you were texting? David froze. What? No. I mean, no. It's complicated. Maya nodded wisely, which was impressive for a 12-year-old. If you like her, tell her. If someone lied about you, tell her. If she's sad, help her. Problem solved. He stared at her. You make that sound easy. She shrugged. Adults overthink everything. And then, because she was his daughter, she went right back to complaining about algebra. But David couldn't shake her words. By Friday morning, the tension was unbearable. Amelia avoided him with the precision of a military operation. She redirected conversations. She sent messages through other employees. She sat on the opposite side of the conference table like he had contracted a contagious virus. And he couldn't take it anymore. He waited until the final meeting of the morning ended. Then he caught her just as she stepped into her office. Amelia, he said quietly, we need to talk. She froze. Her shoulders rose with a slow, defensive breath before she turned slightly toward him. I'm very busy, Mr. Carson. Please don't call me that. Her jaw tightened. He stepped closer, but not too close. Whatever you think you heard, it's wrong. I'm not getting back together with my ex. I'm not working things out. I'm not rebuilding some idyllic family. I am a single dad trying to keep my house from catching fire. Nothing. Not a blink. So he tried again. Softer. And I like you. That broke through. Her lips parted. Her eyes flickered. A crack in the armor. But only briefly. I don't know what you expect me to say, she whispered. Say what you're feeling. She shook her head. I don't know what I'm feeling. I think you do, he said gently. I think something scared you. She swallowed. Hard. Were you jealous? He asked softly. Her eyes closed like she'd been struck. Then, barely audible, yes. Relief washed through him, followed by something warm and unsteady and hopeful. He reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. Then talk to me, he murmured. She exhaled shakily. I thought, if you were going back to your ex, then this, whatever this is, would end before it even began. It's not ending, he said, firm and steady. Unless you want it to. Her eyes lifted to his, uncertain but yearning. I don't, she whispered. And in that tiny, fragile sentence, a door reopened. But just as he leaned closer, just as something in the air shifted, the intercom crackled. Ms. Hart, the division head is here early for your presentation. Amelia's eyes widened. Oh no, he's 30 minutes early. She stepped back in a panic. I have to go. She rushed down the hall before he could say another word. David stood there, the moment shattered but not lost. They weren't fixed, but they weren't broken anymore either. Chapter 8. Clearing the air. The moment Amelia rushed off to her early presentation, David knew he wouldn't get another chance to talk to her until the storm passed. Whichever storm that turned out to be. So he did the only sensible thing a responsible single father and semi-functional adult could do. He sat at his desk and completely failed to focus on anything. The quarterly spreadsheets glared up at him. His email dinged. Mark tried twice to lure him into conversations about alien conspiracies. Nothing worked. His mind kept circling the look on Amelia's face just before she fled down the hall. Something vulnerable. Something rattled. Something that felt dangerously like hope and fear tangled together. It lingered with him all morning. By noon, the office buzz indicated her presentation had gone exceptionally well. People murmured about her clarity, her confidence, her control. Except David knew better. He saw the lingering tension when she emerged from the conference rooms. She looked polished, professional, almost serene. But her shoulders were too straight, her jaw too tight. She thanked people with polite nods but never once met his eyes. He felt it like a stone in his chest. When lunch came and went without a message from her, he decided to wait. She needed time, and he would give it even if it twisted him into knots. It wasn't until nearly 4 in the afternoon that the moment finally arrived. A minor emergency rippled through the department. A misrouted client packet, some corrupted files, a sudden request for a report no one had known they needed. People scrambled, flustered, half panicked. Normally, Amelia would have solved it in 5 minutes. Today, she walked straight into the chaos and froze. David watched from across the office as she stared at 3 employees talking over each other. Papers spilling, questions flying. For a heartbeat, he saw it. The same overwhelmed expression she'd worn on her disaster day. Before she could retreat or shut down, he stepped forward. "Okay," David said gently but firmly, raising a hand. "Everyone take a breath." The group quieted, grateful for direction. He turned to Amelia. "Let's step into the conference room. We'll tackle it together." She hesitated. He kept his voice soft. "Come on." And she followed. The moment the door closed behind them, the carefully maintained walls she'd been carrying all day finally cracked. "I can't seem to think straight," she said with a shaky exhale. "Everything has been off since yesterday and I—" She stopped, pressing a hand to her temple. "And then today's chaos on top of it and I just—" "Amelia," he said gently, "you're exhausted." "No," she insisted, pacing. "I'm confused, and embarrassed, and angry, at myself, at you, at the rumors, at everything." He took a careful breath. "Okay, let's sort it out." She faced him then, finally holding his gaze, her eyes bright with frustration. "Why didn't you tell me sooner? About your ex? About the misunderstanding? I felt like an idiot. I didn't know you believed it until you started avoiding me." "I wasn't avoiding you," she snapped. He lifted a brow. "I was tactically retreating." He huffed a laugh despite himself. "Right. My mistake." She glared, but only for a second. "I didn't want to ask. It felt inappropriate." "Why?" "Because of this." She gestured between them again, frustrated. "Whatever this is, I've never navigated something like it. I didn't want to overstep." He softened. "Amelia, you weren't overstepping." She sank into one of the chairs, tension leaking out of her. "I thought if you'd gone back to your ex, then I had misread everything. I thought maybe I'd let myself get carried away with the idea of you and—" She cut herself off, cheeks flushing. "It doesn't matter." "It does," he insisted, sitting across from her. "Because none of that is true. I'm not going back. And I didn't mislead you. And I didn't want us to fall apart because someone overheard half a sentence at a school." She looked down at her hands. "I felt foolish." "You're not foolish." His voice gentled. "You're someone who finally let herself feel something." Her breath hitched. "I like you," he said quietly. "More than is professionally wise. More than I planned. More than I saw coming." Amelia looked up slowly, and for the first time all day her eyes softened. "I like you too," she whispered. "That's why I panicked." He smiled faintly. "You panic beautifully." "For the record," she groaned. "Don't compliment my panic. Then stop panicking." She huffed, but her posture eased. I don't want to lose control of everything." "You don't have to lose control," he said. "Just loosen the grip a little." She stared at him thoughtfully. "And trust you." "Yes," he said simply. "Trust me." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she leaned back in her chair, exhaling a breath that sounded like surrender. "All right," she murmured. "I'll try." "Good," he said warmly. "We'll figure this out. Together." "Together," she echoed softly. Outside in the hallway, the faint clatter of keyboards and phones resumed, the ordinary rhythm of the office flowing on. Inside the conference room, for the first time in days, the air between them cleared, settling into something steadier, truer, and unmistakably forward-moving. David stood. "Now," he said lightly. "Let's go rescue the department before they burn down the building." Amelia rose too, a small but real smile curving her lips. "Lead the way." He opened the door. She stepped through beside him, and the storm finally broke. Chapter 9, The Confession and the Kiss. The rest of Friday felt like wading through thick fog, present in the body, elsewhere in the mind. But after the chaos, the tension, the confession that wasn't quite a confession, the air between David and Amelia had shifted into something fragile but hopeful. She hadn't avoided him again. She hadn't stiffened when he passed her in the hall. She hadn't shut down or retreated. Instead, She'd moved with a quiet, contemplative calm, like someone who had survived turbulence and was now assessing the new, unexpected altitude. At 5:15, most of the office had cleared out. Keyboards fell silent. Lights dimmed one row at a time. People padded toward elevators in small clusters, murmuring goodbyes and weekend plans. And still, David stayed at his desk, finishing the last line of a status report he hadn't been able to complete earlier. When he glanced up, he realized the building was nearly empty, except for one glowing office at the end of the hall. Amelia's. He hesitated only a moment, then stood and walked toward her door. He paused at the threshold. She sat at her desk, reading glasses perched low on her nose, a soft, tired expression carved into her features. She'd removed her blazer, leaving her in a simple blouse that looked far too vulnerable for the woman who once terrified interns. Her hair fell loosely around her shoulders, as though even it had grown tired of being perfect. He knocked lightly, her head lifted, and warmth softened her gaze. "Hi. Hi," he replied, stepping inside. "You're still here. So are you." He shrugged. "Reports. I'm reviewing projections." Her voice softened. "And thinking. About earlier? About everything." Silence lingered, not sharp this time but expectant. David approached slowly. "Amelia, we didn't really finish that conversation." "No," she said, standing. "We didn't." She walked around her desk, stopping just in front of him, close enough for him to see the faint gold flecks in her green eyes, close enough to feel the warmth from her skin. For a moment, neither spoke. Then, quiet, vulnerable, she said, "I haven't done this before." He blinked. "Done what?" "This." She gestured between them. "Felt something for someone at work, let alone someone who—" She hesitated, eyes flicking down and back up. "Affects me the way you do." He swallowed. "How do I affect you?" She took a breath, steadying herself. "You make me lose control, in good ways, and terrifying ones. You make me laugh when I'm not supposed to laugh. You make me want to confide things I don't tell anyone. And you see through me so easily that it should irritate me. But it doesn't. It just scares me." He stepped closer, voice soft. "I'm scared too." She blinked, surprised. "You are." "Terrified," he admitted. "Because I like you, more than I've liked anyone in a long time. And that means risking something, opening up, letting you in, and letting myself hope." Her expression softened, something blooming behind her eyes. "David." He reached out, carefully taking her hand. Her fingers curled around his instantly, as if they had been waiting for the permission. "I like you," he said quietly. "Not because it's convenient. Not because of some office mishap. Not because you're brilliant or beautiful, which you are. But because you're you. Because you're strong and vulnerable and human and trying so damn hard to be perfect in a world that doesn't let people breathe." She exhaled, a trembling, emotional breath. "You make it sound so simple." "It is," he said gently. "Or it could be, if we let it." Her eyes shone. Not tears, but something softer, deeper. "What about work?" she whispered. "What about the rules?" "We don't have to rush anything," he said. "We can move slowly, carefully. But we don't have to pretend this isn't happening." She nodded slowly, her grip on his hand tightening. "I don't want to pretend." He smiled. "Good." A beat passed, quiet, warm, full of unspoken things. Then, softly, she asked, "Can I do something reckless?" His breath hitched. "Please." She stepped closer, close enough that he felt the gentle brush of her breath against his cheek. "David," she whispered. "Thank you for not giving up." He lifted his free hand to her hip, barely touching, giving her space to pull away. She didn't. Instead, she rose onto her toes, hesitated only a fraction of a second, then kissed him. It was not a timid kiss, not the shy, uncertain gesture he'd expected. It was warm, decisive, deeply felt. A kiss that said, "I've thought about this, fought this, and now I'm done fighting it." David responded instinctively, his hands sliding to her lower back, pulling her closer. Her fingers curled into his shirt, their bodies aligned in a way that felt both brand new and strangely inevitable. She broke the kiss first, barely, breath warm against his lips. "Wow," she murmured. He laughed softly. "Yeah, wow." Her cheeks flushed adorably, but she didn't let go of him. "That was reckless. And perfect," he said. She rested her forehead against his chest for a moment, letting the world fall away. Then she straightened, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "So," she said lightly, "does the entire office know we kissed yet?" He groaned. "Give them 5 minutes." Amelia laughed, a genuine, joyous sound, and kissed him again, quick and soft. Then she whispered, "Let them talk." For the first time, she meant it. Chapter 10, New Beginnings. Monday morning arrived bright and deceptively calm. One of those clear, golden-edged mornings where everything felt possible. For most of the office, it was just another day. For David, it was the first workday after the kiss. The kiss that had rearranged his entire universe. He walked in with a cautious neutrality, trying not to look like a man whose boss had kissed him senseless in a quiet office after hours. He told himself he was composed, professional. So, of course, the first person he saw was Bree, who took one look at him and gasped. "Oh my God, you're glowing." "I'm not glowing," David protested. "You totally are," she said with a knowing grin. "Did something happen?" "No." "So something happened. Goodbye, Bree." He escaped before she could interrogate him, ducking into his cubicle like it was a bomb shelter. Unfortunately, Mark showed up 10 seconds later. "Dude," Mark whispered dramatically, "you look like a man who had a weekend." "It is 8:15 in the morning," David muttered. "Please leave." Mark nodded solemnly. "You know I can't do that." Before David could formulate a reply, a soft voice drifted from behind him. "Good morning, David." He turned. There she was, Amelia Hart, composed but not icy, polished but not guarded. She wore a dark mauve blouse, her hair half pulled back, and the faintest, gentlest smile on her lips. A smile just for him. He swallowed. "Morning," Bree squeaked. Mark inhaled sharply like he'd just witnessed a miracle. Amelia ignored both of them. "I'd like to review the updated forecast with you," she said calmly. "In my office." Pause. Then, with a softness only he caught, she added, "When you have a moment." David nodded. "Sure. I'll be there soon." She gave a small, almost shy nod before heading toward her office. Bree immediately collapsed into Mark's arms. "Oh my God, they're in love." David dropped his face into his hands. "I'm never surviving this place." 10 minutes later, after calming his nerves and second thoughts about fleeing the country, David knocked on Amelia's door. "Come in," she said. He stepped inside and closed it behind him. She was standing by her desk, hands lightly gripping the back of her chair, as if steadying herself. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi," he replied. They stared at each other for a moment, two people playing it cool while both very much remembering the way they had kissed. Finally, Amelia took a breath. "We should talk about us." "Yeah," he said. "We probably should." She gestured for him to sit. Instead, he moved closer, near but not too near. "I don't regret anything," she said quietly. "Not the kiss, not the conversation, not the terrifying emotional honesty of it all." He let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "Me neither. But," she continued, hands tightening slightly, "I want to navigate this carefully, professionally, and I want us to be on the same page." "We are," David said. "Slow, careful, and absolutely not hiding from it." She smiled, small and a little shy. "Yes." He reached out, brushing her fingers. "We'll figure it out." Her cheeks warmed. "You're dangerously reassuring, you know? It's a dad's superpower," he said. "We get them after enough sleepless nights and PDA disasters." She laughed, a warm sound that filled the room. "Speaking of which, how are the kids?" "Chaotic," he said. "Loud, perfect, and very suspicious." She tilted her head. "Suspicious. They think I have a secret girlfriend." Amelia's eyebrows lifted. "Do you?" He gave her a look. "Maybe." Her breath hitched, just a fraction, but delight glimmered in her eyes. "David," she said softly, "I like how this feels." "Me too." She stepped closer, almost without realizing it. "And for the record, I don't care who in this office finds out." "Wow," he said with mock awe. "Reckless. Terrifying," she corrected. "But, yes." Their hands met in the middle, fingertips brushing, then twining. It wasn't a kiss. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a confession. It was something quieter, something real. By late afternoon, the entire office had settled into its usual rhythm. Typing, meetings, quiet chatter. David and Amelia worked separately but with unmistakable awareness of each other, a kind of warm gravity pulling them into the same orbit. Then, at 4:20, a soft mechanical grinding noise echoed across the cubicle farm. Everyone froze. The printer. David closed his eyes. "Oh no." A familiar warning beep followed. He stood. "I swear, if this thing explodes again." Amelia appeared in her doorway, eyes wide. "Is that?" "The printer," he confirmed. "Our old nemesis." Employees leapt aside dramatically as he approached, parting like frightened villagers avoiding a cursed relic. The printer beeped again. "Don't do it," David warned. "Think about your choices." It beeped louder. Amelia joined him, folding her arms. "Should I call maintenance?" He shook his head gravely. "No. This is personal now." The machine wheezed. Everyone watched. David crouched, opened the panel, and, miraculously, found the issue instantly. "Paper jam," he declared. "No toner eruption imminent." The room exhaled in collective relief. "And that," Amelia said softly beside him, "is why you're my emergency contact." He looked up at her, startled. She smirked. "Metaphorically." "Aha," he said. "Metaphorically." She extended a hand to help him up. He took it. She didn't let go. Neither did he. The entire office broke into applause. David groaned. "This place is a circus." Amelia's smile softened. "Maybe, but it's our circus." He squeezed her hand. And this time, we're in it together. She looked at him, really looked at him with warmth, affection, and the unmistakable promise of something enduring. Together, she said. And for once, David didn't feel overwhelmed or uncertain or afraid. He just felt, right, a new beginning, a better one, exactly where he wanted to be.